Hello everyone, and welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is Check the Walls. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. Back when I was 12, I joined my first online community, Gaia Online. We were all just kids talking about anime and collecting sprites. When everyone is hidden behind a colorful avatar and edgy usernames, it is easy to make new friends and to talk to people you'd never meet otherwise. I live in Europe and made tons of friends from all over the world back in those days. Australians, Canadians, Koreans, all kinds of people. As months turned into years and Gaia Online grew further and further away, only one of those friends remained, Jacob. He lived up in Manitoba, in the outskirts of Winnipeg. Despite a huge time difference, we usually met up online for an hour or two every day. We played MMOs together, started a guild. Time difference actually played to our advantage, as we could take turns moderating most hours of the day. Over the years, I moved on to study journalism and stopped having time for gaming. Jacob went on to get a dental degree. That hour a day became an hour a week, then a month. And when I turned 25, I realized we hadn't talked for a year. I liked his Facebook post, but that was about it. A face I used to know. Last year, we reconnected. I stayed up until midnight and caught him just after dinner. We talked about the guild, which is still run by people we took in, and where life had taken us. As we talked, I asked him about why he wanted to be a dentist. It wasn't something I even thought about asking. It just seemed like something you ought to ask. Apparently, I never asked him about it before. Most people didn't. Most people just assumed it was because of his dad, who had been a dentist. Jacob told me that he himself, like others, assumed it was some misguided family business thing. He hadn't really considered any other reason. It had seemed like a stable job, and his dad always seemed happy with it. Still, Jacob seemed a bit off after talking about it, like he hadn't considered why he pursued this career. I don't get it personally. Teeth are weird. We talked again a week later. We were discussing the possibility of me taking a trip up there sometime to meet the family, maybe go fishing, maybe bring a laptop for some old school gaming, something like that. We got back to talking about his job, and he mentioned thinking about what I had asked him. He'd been thinking about it a lot, apparently. I got this weird memory, he said. Back when I was a kid, we lived out by Homewood. My aunt worked long weekends from Friday night to Monday morning, so my dad would go by her house on Saturday to feed her cats. I noticed Jacob wasn't really telling me specifically at this point. It was more like he was telling himself, and I just happened to be there in the same space, like he needed to get it out. It was weird. He had this tone of voice that I never heard before, droning, almost gibbering. My dad got hurt real bad one summer, he continued. He was in a car accident, broke both of his arms. His left arm went septic, and he was out for months. During this time, we needed someone to feed my aunt's cats. He was really serious about it. Too serious. I was just 8 years old. My two sisters were older, 10 and 12, but for some reason, he never asked them to go. Instead, he was adamant about me being the one to do it, and that I should be quiet about it. We don't want to snoop around your aunt's house. That's impolite, he told me. The first Saturday when I went to feed the cats, my dad stopped me in the driveway. He told me to bring a metal bucket and a small rock hammer. "You're not feeding the cats," he said. "Check the walls for teeth. Be thorough." That's all he said. Check the walls for teeth. Be thorough. I didn't even question it. I had no idea what he meant, but the way he said it was like having a gun to my head. I'd never been to my aunt's place, and I can't actually picture her face. Maybe I'd never actually met her to this day. I can't remember ever seeing her. At this point, Jacob was getting frantic and stopped occasionally to take deep breaths. There were bursts of short laughter. I didn't know what to say and never got the chance to add anything to the conversation. That house was in the middle of this big, flat, empty space. It stood out like a wart, and it stank of oils and wet wood. Not a speck of paint left. Just naked planks and concrete. Even the house key seemed out of place. One of those big iron chunks that stained my fingers with rust. The inside was even worse. Bare walls with curled wallpaper. Everything felt wet. Soft floorboards. The whole place seemed abandoned. No furniture, except for a linen-covered sofa that'd been cracked in half, and a bookshelf that had been tipped over in the middle of the hallway. I went to the room with my rock hammer and bucket. In one of the back rooms, I saw them for the first time. Teeth. A row of 6 teeth, as big as my thumb. They stuck out of the wall, clear as day, like zits. They were warm to the touch. Using the rock hammer, I knocked them out one by one. They left holes in the wall. Something moved in them. Roots, maybe. They clanged into my bucket one by one. That was my whole summer. Every Saturday, I went back to the house. I checked for teeth. Sometimes I found them in the ceiling or the floor. Sometimes they were as small as a Tic Tac. Sometimes as big as a thumb. They were sneaky, always popping up in new places. There were dozens behind the sofa once, which I'd forgotten to move the first few weeks. By the end of summer, I had filled several buckets with oversized, disfigured teeth. Dad and I never talked about it. He just said that it wants a male to do it. At the end of summer, I handed back the hammer and bucket, and my dad went back to feeding the cats on the regular. Over the years, I must have just stopped thinking about it. Jacob told me that his dad died a few years ago, and that no one had been to that old house since. I didn't know what to say. At this point, he was just rambling. I'd never heard him like that. It was as if he was remembering it all for the first time. That summer was like a dream, Jacob said. So bizarre that, in a way, it was the realest thing I've ever been through. At the time, it was as if it never happened. You know what I mean? He quickly excused himself, yelling something about walking his dog. We didn't speak after that, but we kept in touch by messages. I tried to check in on him, see if he was okay, but our conversations grew more superficial. Nostalgia can only last so long when reality comes knocking. Last thing I heard from him was 2 months ago, when he told me he had to go back to that old house. He had to know if that summer was even real. The last text message I got was, "I'm going to feed the cats." I haven't heard from him since, and the number has been disconnected.